you're continually reading as a writer, and you're
Mhm.
always working on craft. So I'd say, like, how did Eric do it? I'm looking at you as a business side, but you're also a writer, right? Something, how did you make it so people could digest it? And then I look at a lot of my books that I love, if I reread them, like for structure, but you
Mhm.
actually must sit your butt in the chair and write. Some people are like 350 a day, 1,000 a day. You can read how they do it. Annie Dillard, Stephen King, Anne Lamott, but you got to generate the writing to have writing.
All right, MyLinh, thank you so much for joining us.
I'm glad to be here.
Before we get into your book and your backstory are really the same. So I'd love to, you have a very fascinating story, and I would love to kind of pull your string on it.
No, thank you. It's interesting. I feel like I've been telling stories most of my life. My father's, an Irish American, and my mother's Vietnamese from central Vietnam. And they're both storytellers in their own language. They could spin a yarn for days, months, and you'd be waiting for the punchline, like wake up in the middle of the night, some other country, and go, "Oh, that's what it's about." But no, it's like it's been interesting telling people, the background, especially with my name. My brother is a 6'1" guy named Donald Brewster, and he
Hmm.
looks very Vietnamese, whereas I can almost pass because I'm pretty tall, but then everybody stumbles on them. Is it MyLinh? What's your name? I'm like, yeah, it's Vietnamese, right? Like, so anyway, I've been telling stories for a long time, but I think the genesis of it for me was, you have children, and I don't know if you have children as well, but they make you reevaluate a lot of stuff.
Hmm.
So when my oldest looked at what she was going to do, and she decided like West Point was the only place for her, I was not ready for it, I guess. Like if you get out and do stuff yourself, I'd do anything. I'd look at like, well, there's Eric. I mean, he's doing it. I can do that. That was my way of thinking. I'm a big person, and I just wasn't ready for when my kid did that. And it's the weirdest thing. I mean, I could sleep on a dime, do everything, jump out of planes, rappel out of helicopters, but when she left, I just didn't sleep. It was the weirdest thing. Like, what's going on? And so the fear you have for your child, and I'm sure you've seen it where you lost your kid for 2 minutes or something, like it's just like nothing. Right. And so now I really am experiencing, at late stage in my life, what the fear is like for a military parent. And that's why I just was like, I got to start writing this. No designs. No, I want to put this out there for the public, really for myself. Let's get to the bottom of this. And to sustain a book, as you know, you have to have an intense level of passion. And
Hmm.
so it was fear. I mean, honest to goodness, fear.
So you started writing this just as a way to process what you were going through. At what point did it turn into, oh, this is something that I want to kind of turn inside out and share with the world?
hmm So I had been writing and I loved writing. So the irony is I've done so much, was in the corporate world, was teaching as a professor, and then I wore the uniform and I was an army officer at the end of the Cold War. And I really wanted to major in English. And I had the parents that were like, what are you gonna do with that?
Mm.
So I majored in mathematics because naturally it's so close, math and English, but
Can you, what are the available things to study for you at West Point? Are you sort of shuttled into a specific
yeah, no, that's a great question. Because
major?
people don't realize West Point is the nation's first engineering school. It continually ranks in the top 2 or 3, mechanical and civil. I mean, whatever we do, we have to use. It's beyond theory, right? So it's pragmatic, but you have to have a bachelor's of science degree. So there are close to 40 majors. So I could be an English and philosophy major. I would still have a bachelor's of science degree with an engineering track. And you're
Interesting.
taking multivariable class. It's like 30, 35 core courses because it is classical liberal arts. It's not enough that you know your mathematics. You don't got to know high level of mathematics and engineering because you're going to be on the ground somewhere, where they're
Hmm.
trying to put a bridge in place or set up, potable water. No, so I could have majored in English for sure. I'd still be an engineer. I'd still have a bachelor's of science degree, but I'd also have an English major. But at some point, and I think like you, like, teaching seminars or something, like you want to be a writer. You really want to be a writer. Is there anything else in the world that you can do? Because you should do that. But you got to love words. And it's like breathing, right? Like I just have to write. So I started writing like 20 some years ago. I've got over 10,000 hours in. I was a freelance person. I did correspondence for the military, did newspapers. You remember them?
I
Yeah.
miss newspapers.
Yeah. No, I
Miss the
did a
aesthetic of
feature.
newspapers.
I won a contest, like 800 people, and they were bringing in columnists, and then they loved my writing and they're like, could you do the military feature? And so I
Mhm.
wrote features on our deployed soldiers, and it used to be picked up by the Early Bird, the Department of Defense. And I loved it. You get paid nothing, right? So finally I just realized, all right, I gotta start writing for myself. So when my daughter left, I said, I'm going to really work on craft. I think I was already
Mm.
competent as a journalist, but I'm like, I want to figure out how to write long form, which you've done. I don't know if you also studied, but so I went back for a master's in fine arts, and I looked at all the writers I liked and I applied to those programs. And there were 2 or 3 writers who just stood out for me. I love their work. And so I said, well, I'll go at least have exposure to commercial writers, professional writers,
Mhm.
and see if it helps my writing. Because there's so many theories on, no, don't go to the schoolhouse, right? It's going to mess you up. But yeah, so I had been writing for a long time, and I said, this is it. My kid's going. I'm going to. So I went abroad with a low residency program. And I didn't set out to write it. I just started writing all these things that were bugging me. I'm like, I have to write this. This is really bothering me. And I found out that I was writing this story about the stuff she's going through. And that was kind of a foil. Like, if you write about your kid, you probably don't want to say your name. So the very first draft, I didn't even
Mhm.
use her name. She was a foil for really exploring my experience when women were just integrated. I was in the 12th class. The first class graduated in 80. I reported in 1987, 12 years after Saigon fell.
Yeah. So the content for people who are sort of we're putting the pieces together breadcrumb style, but like the essence of the book is that you went through West Point as one of the first women, some of the very earliest classes of women to attend West Point, and now 30 years later, your daughter is going through, and it is a very interesting mix of kind of like memoir and reflection
Mhm.
about your experience, her experience, feeling of yeah, military parents, and that mixture of kind of fear and courage and hope. Like I think it's a really like cool and unique story. I think it's so I'm so glad you wrote it, and I'm so glad that you shared it.
Yeah,
So
yeah, no, it's
those are both independent decisions.
mhm, mhm. I think that it was, an epiphany about 2018, a year after I had my first manuscript. I woke up, that sometime that day, and I said, "This is raising Athena." It's how did I raise a child? Because when you see your child with weaponry in the current combat uniform, man, you're like, "That's not my kid." It is
Mhm.
my kid, but what the heck? Kind of freaked me out, really. And so then I realized I needed to, this is what I wrote. But when you start out, it's just there's so much crap in there, right? Like, you got to cut
Mhm.
that out. You got to really figure out what your thesis is. And honestly, I don't know if I read so many books on writing, Eric. I love Haruki Murakami, and he wrote this thing, The Novelist as a Profession, which is a rare individual that makes money writing. Like Edgar Allan Poe tried to do it too. And it's extraordinary. Like, he explains to you, because he plans to make his whole living is writing books. Like, the rest of us are, even Stephen King, right? Like, he had teaching English somewhere, like driving his book around.
Yeah.
So I just began the process, and I probably have at least 5 full rewrites. So I respect the reader's intelligence a lot. And it's like, to me, I love the Hemingway school, which is take it all out. If you don't think it adds, let the
Hmm.
reader figure it out. But then I realized, like, Mark Kait, who's fantastic, your senior editor over there,
Hmm.
is just like, he loved the philosophical things and the reflections. Because I don't have a religion. I don't like have something to fall back on. And when my daughter asks me about filling out her dog tags, that's about death, right? Like, that's about when you die on the battlefield. How does Eric want his final rites? Right? Like, it's 5 lines. It hasn't changed for 100 years. And you got to put your blood type on there, and you got to put your religious preference on there. So I'm Buddhist and Catholic. My husband's Jewish and Unitarian. I'm like, what are we?
There's your 5 lines right there.
Yeah, right. So, like I put no preference. And at the time they had mandatory chapel services. When people served, they served for God and country. Really. A lot of people still do.
Mhm.
And I was the only person like standing, like chapel services were voluntary and I would just go back to my barracks and they're like, come on, Brewster, you got to go get the cookies or something, like worried about my soul. I'm like, you're screaming at me 1 minute. Then you want me to go get some cookies. I mean, I went, but yeah, so I had to sort these things out. And then I really learned a lot as a writer too. Just being in the schoolhouse you get workshopped. I don't know if you've been workshopped.
Tell me about it.
So you go in a workshop and it's really a workshop model. I went to Queen's University in Charlotte and I love that because you sit like on a stool, basically, you're in the room and you don't talk. And we've read Eric's chapter on Elon or whatever, and we pass it around and we take it home and we mark it all up. And then we just let you tell you what we think. And you can't say anything. You go around the room and you get workshopped. And then at the end, you get the edits, the copy edits, however people do it, and you get it all to take back with you to decide how you want to use it. You have 5 people telling you this is slow or this statement, or you really have no scene development here or your dialogue's off. Okay, you're probably off, right? And then you have to make the decision, if you're going to change it, right? And how it ultimately makes you better. But no, so I learned from the workshop model at Queen's. It was very, very good. And I had great professional writers too that I work with.
Interesting. So, how did your book change between like your original vision for it and what ended up actually getting published finally?
Hmm. It's so extreme. So I am about the slowest writer on the planet. I'd say it was 8 to 9 to 10 years.
Perfection takes time, craftsmanship has no deadline, as I
Yeah, but
say.
we have our lives going on. I mean, there's a lot of other stuff. I'm involved with so much stuff. But I mean, it's just a fantastic question. So the first manuscript, it's like, who is it that says shitty first drafts? I want to say it's Anne Lamott. She wrote Bird by Bird. I've read them all, like you name it. It was arcane, like Chuck Palahniuk. I've read all this stuff. It's shitty.
Do you have a favorite of those?
Yeah.
Like, does one stand out as like resonating with you the most?
Gosh, I love Ursula Le Guin's Steering the
Mm.
Craft. Like she has 10 exercises and like the last one is going, gut it in half.
Yeah.
Take it and cut it in half. And you
Yeah.
distill the essence and what's most important for your reader. And you know what? It's probably better because a lot of it's just garbage. What are you really saying? So the short answer to that, I would say, is I just wrote what was on my mind and what I was wrestling with at that time in my life.
Mhm.
And I realized I was dealing with the struggles of a military parent that were new to me. And I also realized there's not much in American history, in human history. Women have been fighting for a long time, they've been in combat, but they've usually had to go weird ways about it or cover their gender. But we're really the first generation where it's mother and daughter, right? So for all the men, they just go, hey, Eric, you'd ask your dad and Bob would know, or you ask your godfather or your uncle or your grandparent. There was not a model for women. And so when I had these issues or whatever, and women were hard on women. Eric, they were just really tough. They're like, well, we did it, only half of us survived and you got to be able to be tough to survive. And they're kind of lone wolves. So mentors as a word really didn't exist. And it didn't mean that I didn't have guys that were kind or people that wanted to help you. There were just no precedents. There weren't many.
Yeah, there's a difference between a mentor and a model.
Yes, absolutely. Or even a friend or a teammate, right? It's just different because they had no experience either, right? So I realized what I was doing historically, there was no precedent for it. And I didn't set out to be that way. So at the end of the first year, I wake up and I'm like, oh, it's about raising Athena. Or the words came to me like I'm trying to raise this warrior. I didn't mean to set out. I just looked.
It's a great title.
Yeah.
I love the title.
If you're familiar with the myth, she comes out fully formed in body armor, with the lance and the shield and the pallets. And I mean, she comes out of Zeus's head, right? And look, she has no mother, if you think about it, right? It's just, there's no mother. So I didn't have that. And so I was like, what do I tell my kid? And I didn't process a lot of the crazy stuff. So that's what I had at first. Going to the schoolhouse helped. It was a wake up to the weaknesses in my writing. Real professionals truly mentoring try to help you, right? Like, you got to do this.
Mhm.
And then probably the next few rewrites, I realized, okay, I need to really think about Kara as a character and not simply a foil without a name. So Mark Kait at Scribe, he just reads a gazillion books. He said, we're all dying, and it's like to know who this Kara is.
Mhm.
So probably the last two rewrites, I developed her character. And we had done a lot more interviews and realized your kid is 18. You don't like me. Like, maybe you don't want to put her thoughts out there and her name. But by the time she's 26 now, so, and we had so many interviews. And so I developed her as fully and respectfully as I could without projecting my thoughts into her mind. So using
Mhm.
her language, her quotes, her interviews, her stories, and then accurately fleshing her out, warts and all. Like, like you might think that you're a great kid, but you're a pain in the ass sometimes, like, right? Like, just fleshing her out as I
And
fleshed myself out, which is,
and what was her reaction to that? I mean, obviously, you're interviewing her, you did this with her tacit, if not explicit permission, but I feel like a lot of people struggle with that. It's like, to write a good memoir, you have to represent other people, and it's very hard to do that in an unbiased way or in a like full and honest way. So how did you approach that conversation with her?
so by this time, you got to figure she's in her early 20s. It seems like half her life or a third of her life, her mother's been writing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But I tried to create, what I did is I tried to create the tension of discovery and bring the reader in the narrative present. So there's three temporal, it's really quite like intense, but trying to make it seamless for the reader, which is, I'm doing my backstory in Saigon. I open up on the embassy because my father's rescued from the embassy with the ambassador, the very last chopper for the official mission personnel to get out of Saigon. My dad's on that. No phones. We don't know, right? Like, I got out a few weeks earlier.
Mhm.
Then I get to my daughter in the very beginning, and I use her essay so people can hear her voice. So I include different forms of writing so you can see her college essay, and it brings people to tears. So I've had people request it, say, can I put it on my screen? I'm like, sure, put it on your screensaver. Like, it's pretty powerful. So as I'm folding her in, I think the way you flesh her out is I framed the flashbacks. So each chapter I open with something that's going on with her that's bothering me. I didn't have to box. Okay. So men, nosebleeds, it's notorious. Most concussions, I think, across the United States in any sport is Army boxing.
Hmm.
Women didn't have to box. So my daughter's in the second class. She has to box. I don't know why. It's freaking me out. I'm like, it was scary for men. Their nose is knocked out of joint, blood's hitting on the floor. And I'm thinking my daughter's going to do that. Right. Like, I still am not quite figured out how to fall asleep. And I'm thinking, you're scared. Imagine your kid, right? This is your kid. You're like, I don't care about myself. So I framed it with the stuff going down. She goes, Mom, I got boxing. And I'm like, what does that mean you got boxing? Did you get your gloves? And so she's telling me what it's like, boxing, getting hit in the face, like watching girls bleed and going up against people that actually boxed before. And she practices with guys. She tests and spars. The graded bouts are with weight to weight, skill level to skill level, gender to gender. But it could be you and Eric. Like, I'm your weight. I'm 160 on one side. I'm gonna box the guy my weight level. Like, no way. He's packing weight more behind his punch. But so I would frame each chapter the way you would structure your thing, and I realized whatever was bothering about what she told me about, and then I would go back into my time, because what was it like for me? I had to run
Mhm.
fast. I had to be strong. I had to carry men's pack. I had to prove myself double, right? So I
Yeah.
ended up being on the track team, but I was a slow ass runner. I was really slow, and I fell out of runs, and some guys helped me finish. I learned to finish. I got really fast. I went in the fast group. My mom was like an Olympic level runner in Vietnam,
Mhm.
but then I end up walking on the track team and became the track captain. So my peers told that story when they went to their units. They're like, we have to tell you about this girl who was a fallout runner, couldn't even stay in the formation runs. 81-31 down the strip. And so you're running down the strip, left foot, right foot. And I'm like, you get to the X mile part, and I'm like, I'm gonna pass out. And I did, I just fall out. But amazing thing happens when you're training every day and you're going through this tough stuff, like going through the gas chamber, you can suffer it. It sucks. But you learn how to trust that gas mask when you've just taken in CS gas, right? And every orifice of your body is leaking fluids, right? Like, so I used her experience, and I would go back and try to reconcile some of these serious things that happen. And I was lucky. Like, honestly, everybody had a suck. Everybody sucked in some way. You do not get through unscathed. It might look different for a woman, and there are bad things that can happen. So I do talk about that. And I didn't, by the way. So, one of the editors like, aren't you going to talk about sexual harassment? I'm like, okay, I guess I should. But that was one of the things that was bothering me. Like, is she going to have to put up with that shit? And yeah, everybody puts up with stuff. It's a little more professional. Women can have been there longer, but there's always, bad individuals. There's bad actors,
I wonder what are some of the biggest changes that between your two experiences, between you and Kara's experience 30 years apart?
Mm-hmm. I mean, that's a big spoiler, but I like.
Oh no, I don't know spoilers.
No, but it is. It's where do you get to? What do I mean, I don't resolve things, right? Like, my kid went to Korea. She went to Poland. She was in Wiesbaden fighting with the Ukrainians. So she's going to take command soon. My son wants to go in the Rangers, right? So I'm living scared a lot. I mean, I'm just tracking the news, but I did a lot of research on death. 58,000 that died in Vietnam. And I'm looking at POWs, MIAs today, what happens with women. And I looked at every one of my classmates that died. And in the process of writing this book, I went to a few funerals, and 3 of my good friends' kids died. Like, I mean, it's just, so I don't resolve it, but I face it. I mean, I face it. And I think America, because we're an all volunteer force, just doesn't know who we are anymore. So it's my story, and my daughter's really gritty, really raw. Yeah. Just really, I've been working in the field force for my U.S. senator. I do you need a congressional nomination. I work with the admissions at West Point for nearly 2 decades. I see every essay. I'm on boards for scholarship for military units. These kids are amazing. In Vietnam, they protested. They didn't want to go. Right. So across the country, we were all had stake, all had a stake. World War II, just 100 years. I mean, World War I, every able-bodied male went.
Yeah.
Right. So today it's less than 1%. You watch the Maduro raid, you watch Epic Fury, you watch Hammer. I mean, you watch all these things. I have people writing me like, can you pray for my son? Like, because now it's the parents' fear. Like, the kid is fearless. They're like, oh, mom's not gonna happen. Like, but I'm like, we've lived longer. We've been to funerals. Yeah. So what's happened, what's changed is I understand the problems and the numbers. They track military deaths very closely, and suicide has outpaced all the rest. So we got a big problem with that. We still have an issue with sexual harassment. So I looked at the stats. That really helped me. And I just didn't want to look at those things. But I also went by name and looked at my classmates who died. I talked to my peers who lost a dozen soldiers. Like, you're calling, hey, Eric, you're the one that's got to talk and write a letter to the family.
Yeah.
So I think 50-year anniversary of women stepping into a federal service academy this July 7th. So my audiobook is released from Scribe on that day. 250th year anniversary of the country. These are the people that made our country. And now we are fewer than 1%. It's insane. Who are we? I meet people who don't know anybody in the service. So I'm telling you who we are. And I put a lot of other characters and by name and people that have died. And, this is who we are. And I'm worried because I don't think people have a stake in the game or spend time taking time to know who's going out and dying for them,
Yeah. I come from a military family on both sides, actually. And I mean, a common where I grew up, but I agree. Like the more people I meet from the coast have no idea, don't know anybody, don't understand why anybody would enlist, don't understand the mindset of somebody who, as you say, yeah, God and country and kind of the tradition and the honor that comes from that, which is a shame. And I'm
Yeah.
glad that, there's a lot that's being like talked about and shared, and more of the stories are coming out.
Yeah, no,
Um,
and thank goodness you guys also share a lot of the stories. I had 6, I mean, I had agents, number 1 agent in nonfiction. And
mm,
the interesting thing is, I mean, loved it. Like, this is incredibly terrific. Learned what a book proposal was. But the publishers, the traditional publishers, oh, it's not on their list. It's not on the list. I'm like, if I'm not on your list, like, what the frick is on your list? There's a silo. There's a real silo
yeah,
in publishing for, like, there are voices that aren't heard that Scribe is allowing to be heard. It's like you're exposed to both parents. That's incredible that in your family. So, incredibly thankful for families like yours. But there's it's the widening civil military gap, and the irony is I didn't set out that way. I wanted to be
hmm
a great writer. I had to get this stuff down, and I wanted to write it as well as I could and respect the reader. But it's an antidote for that problem, which is you don't know us, read.
yeah. It's a common thing. I think there's a paradox of like the more personal of your story, the more personally you approach your story, the more people it ends up reaching, and the wider applicability it has. And to be really raw and real with your own story does inevitably get to this kind of like, yeah, this helps people understand the world that they're in more broadly, because you come to really love the person that you're reading about. If you do your best as an author and your best as a reader, the reader sort of brings an open mind and open heart too. You do some to come to really gain empathy for somebody that a part of the world or a perspective that you didn't have coming in.
No, no, that's
Yeah.
me. I've been running book clubs for 20 years, and all these books I wouldn't have read. I mean, I just
hmm
like it's great. It exposes me to things that I didn't know at all about and probably wouldn't
Yeah.
ever choose.
Oh man, did you get to bring your book to your book club?
So they're going to read it over the summer. Um,
Yes.
what
Oh,
it,
that must be so special.
it is really special. And I launched it at West Point when the 50th year anniversary, there were 500 people that came back for that
Wow.
work, and I couldn't, people just walked away because I couldn't sign them, and I couldn't get them done. And I didn't even know how to charge. I was like, how does this work? Like, I've never done this.
That's so cool. I generally ask what is the, an unexpected good thing that came as a result of your book, but it sounds like launching at West Point on the 50th anniversary might be
Yeah. I
hard to
think there was
top.
divine intervention because I really wanted to launch last year with you guys, and I had Ellie Cole, was working with
hmm
her, and my mother got sick and died. And I'm like, this is a priority. She never got to see the book, but they started Flag Day. I'm the featured speaker. I'm going out to the Air Museum in California. By the way, your seminar was fantastic. I
Oh, good. Thank you.
couldn't get it all down, so the slides just came through. But like all these things and the Women's Memorial, they're all talking to me, and so they're just going out. I'm going down to my bookstore tomorrow. They ordered copies. They want me to sign them. I'm going to be talking on Flag Day and explaining what the flag means to me. They just like, can you just sign your book? I'm like, well, let's talk about the flag. But it's gratis. I think you said that it's like the first year or 6 months, just go and do all these things, talk on podcasts. But as soon as the book came out, so I think it was Tony Orlando who sang "Tie a Yellow Ribbon." He was last year's speaker. It's like thousands. They have 4,000 followers. I mean, they have a ton of people there. I'm thinking, oh man, do I want to do that? And I got to get myself out there. And so it's so
Yes, you
many
do want to do
things.
it. That's
I
incredible.
want to use your playbook and just go, I want to knock it out the park because I'm really believing in the reception from independent top Goodreads reviewers, like very
Mm.
top. Like it's so good. So I'm getting there's validation with like, okay, it's reaching people. They love it. They're reading it. I have pictures of them reading it. How do I reach the audience besides my little self? That's
Yeah. Yeah. This would be an amazing book club book. Yeah, so fantastic. My general closing question is, what do you recommend? What is your piece of advice for authors who are just aspiring, just on the cusp of sort of making a commitment to their book, that are, maybe in your case, 8 or 10 years up the road?
I mean, that's such a great way to close. I think you gotta really truly love it, because it's tough. It's really, really tough. And I think really until I had quite a few thousand hours, there's something about it, but I hit enough hours and I read everything out there. You're continually reading. So I'm reading everything. I'm purging my house. I probably have thousands of books. I just purged 500 books, but you're continually reading as a writer, and you're
Mhm.
always working on craft. So I'd say, like, how did Eric do it? Like, so I'm looking at you as a business side, but you're also a writer, right? Something, how did you make it so people could digest it? And then I look at a lot of my books that I love, if I reread them, like for structure, but you
Mhm.
actually must sit your butt in the chair and write. See what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, you have to write the material. So there's generative periods of your life. Some people are like 350 a day, 1,000 a day. You can read how they do it. Annie Dillard, Stephen King, Anne Lamott. But your method, Eric, what is it that works? The kids are asleep. You sit down, you crank your 350. What is it? You got to generate the writing to have writing. And you got to keep rewriting too. It just because you got it out doesn't mean it's great. You're getting
Yeah.
it out. I think everybody writes something like, oh, you got to read it. I'm like, yeah, but is it any good? Like, why would I want to read it?
Yeah, the refining, the magic is in the refining. And I think the most underrated sentence in this whole podcast is, like, you did 5 major revisions. This is a lot of
Huge. Yeah.
refinement and work, and very few people walk up and hit the bullseye with their first throw. So, but the good news is swings are free, so you can just keep at it until you're happy with the product, and nobody has to know how many revisions it took and how many hours it
But they
spent.
ask, and I'm like,
uh,
well, my friends got their PhD in less time. So
yeah. All right, where would you send people to learn about you, follow along with your journey, pick up the book?
yeah, so I've been running a blog for 12 years, and I do have followers, and I have a podcast, and it's a treehouseletter.com. If you put in Raising Athena or MyLinh Shattan, my name's hard. So treehouseletter.com/the book has lots of reviews, indie reviews, top rated reviewers, and it tells you how to get the book. I'm doing signed copies. And let me tell you, this is a humbling and educational process, Eric.
As is life. It's a microcosm of life.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, MyLinh, for taking the time. Thank you for your service.
Yeah.
Thank you for the courage that it takes to let your daughter, not a let, but watch your daughter and the rest of your family join the service. She's not the only one.
No, I
So,
have to say that Kara, Davis, and Nora, my third daughter gets her commission. She's going to go with the 173rd Airborne. My son is
wow,
4th Infantry Division. All 5 of us served, 8 members on active duty right now in the family.
incredible. Thank you all. Heroes.
Thanks, Eric.